that if God created this world, if he chose this world instead of that world, then he makes it causally inevitable every single action that you are going to make. Knowing exactly what's going to happen in the future, it makes all of those events inevitable, which means that they're all causally determined, which means that we have no free will if you believe in an all-good God or an all-knowing God that made everything.
Well, have it your way.
If God is the creator of all things and, in a way, the master of our destiny, then do we have free will? And the answer can technically be yes and no. Dr. Peterson failed to kind of acknowledge that. Welcome to the Father Leo Show, where I am dishing out faith, culture, and commentary. And in this episode, we're going to ask the question, did Dr. Jordan Peterson, the great thinker, the psychologist, and presenter on all things logical, did he lose to a bunch of young people in a debate between a believer versus atheists? You all probably saw clips of that on the Jubilee podcast. We're going to get right into it. But before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and comment, because your engagement is absolutely necessary for a show like this to overcome the algorithms that suppress good Catholic pastoral content. And please know that we can only have a show like this if you can support us monthly at patreon.com/thefatherleo show, giving you access to great formative content, but also some special perks, including some upcoming travels, which you can join me on by going to platinggrace.com/travel. You'll see all of the new promotions that we're doing for our trips, their faith and food, and it's just a lot of fun. But let's just jump right into it now with the discussion on the debate between Jordan Peterson and 20 atheists. If you're not familiar with the Jubilee platform, it's got one person who sits in the center of the room and 20 people with an opposing opinion have a certain amount of time to debate the issue. We're going to get into what debate is all about, but I wanted to at least show you what Jordan Peterson was up against. We put together a montage. It's about 2.5 minutes long. I want you to listen to this because it'll get you going for sure, especially if you're a believer of God and a believer of the Catholic Church. This will definitely frustrate you, but we have to do it. So be patient and check this out.
Familiar with the Immaculate Conception?
Why is that relevant?
Because you go to a Catholic church, don't you? Or you've attended recently. You're interested in Catholicism, aren't you?
Sure.
All right. Are you familiar with their doctrines?
Somewhat.
Okay, you're
Their
familiar.
doctrines are very
how do they
deep.
regard Mary?
Why are you asking me that?
Because you're a Christian.
You say that. I haven't claimed that.
Oh, what is this? Is this Christians versus atheists?
I don't know.
You don't know where you are right now.
Don't be a smartass.
Well,
and I mean
either you're a
'cause I
Christian
won't
or you're
talk
not.
to you if you're a smartass.
Either you're a Christian or you're not. Which one is it?
I could be either of them, but I don't have to tell you.
You don't have to tell me. I was under the impression
private.
I was invited to talk to a Christian. Am I not talking to a Christian?
No, you were invited to.
I think everyone should look at the title of the YouTube channel. You're probably in the wrong YouTube video.
So we'll stop it right there for a moment because Dr. Jordan Peterson says, "You're really quite something, aren't you?" And the kid responds, the young man responds, "And you're really quite nothing." And Jordan Peterson just kind of shuts down that debate because the persons who are in the center have the ability to kind of turn the debate off. So Jordan Peterson canceled that one young man, and you saw the format of it. They're just kind of in a warehouse, lots of cameras, and there's 20 other people there. And you're going to notice that the way some people talk, and we're going to get into this, the way some of these young people talk, it's just rapid fire syllogistic argumentation. It's really not debate. And it's more than anything, it's just, again, who can get you to look stupid? And when you have 20 people against one, the one person is always going to look a little stupider because it seems that the mass of people, the 20 plus people there, are laughing. There's a little bit of jeering. They're trying to be respectful, but you can see that they are young and therefore kind of immature. I mean, even the way you saw one of the kids, his name might be Parker. I can't remember, to be honest with you. I've seen he's a left progressive commentator, young person who's oftentimes on TikTok. And I mean, they're kind of like childish in the way they react. But Dr. Jordan Peterson entered into a debate, and apparently Jubilee, the organizers of this debate forum, did change the topic. And it was originally Christian versus atheists. And Jordan Peterson is actually not a Christian. His wife became Catholic. Jordan Peterson has been very supportive of her faith journey. But Jordan Peterson himself did not come out publicly and say, I am a Christian. So I think Jubilee got something wrong in the translation. Dr. Jordan Peterson certainly got something wrong in his understanding. And this one person just tried to rail on Dr. Jordan Peterson because he was going into the dogma of the Immaculate Conception. And so, is it Christianity, belief in God, or is it Catholicism? And these need to have distinctions. If not, it's going to literally turn into the dumpster fire that was that part of the debate. But now we're going to go into hearing another debater with Jordan Peterson. Check this out.
If you believe in an all-knowing God, then free will is impossible.
You know,
It's
1,000
contradictory.
years of deep thinking philosophers would disagree with you.
Yeah,
but have
and
their
a
way.
1,000 years of, or at least like the last 50 years of philosophers would disagree with you, these analytic philosophers, that if God created this world, if he chose this world instead of that world, then he makes it causally inevitable every single action that you were going to make. If he made a world where we were just electrons in love, then none of this would have happened. But by making us in this world, knowing exactly what's going to happen in the future, it makes all of those events inevitable, which means that they're all causally determined, which means that we have no free will if you believe in an all-good God or an all-knowing God that made everything.
Well, have it your way.
Okay, cool.
I don't-
So then the
I
free will
don't-
of the Odyssey fails.
Well, it fails for you. That doesn't mean you've disproved it. I mean,
Do you
you
want to
tried
respond
to
to
make
the argument?
Yes, you tried to make a case for a causally deterministic universe. I don't think there's any evidence for that at all.
So this argument from this young man, who is a little bit more respectful sounding, although with real deep tones of impetuous. I mean, forgive me, Lord, but these just seem like half-thinking, snot-nosed, entitled, fast talkers. Not necessarily debaters, but people who just want to argue for the sake of arguing. Now, but this is the platform for it, so guess what? You're allowed to be this way. And they're probably going to think, well, you're just some old, middle-aged, fuddy-duddy, flabby Filipino priest who doesn't think. That could be true too. So that's why I premised by saying, forgive me, Lord. The impression that I get is this. And why is this important? Because it gives these young people a platform to try to tear down Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson is a household name for commonsensical, logical thinking, a master at trying to debunk relativism, the craziness of woke agenda, the hypocrisy of DEI, and really a combator of all things subjective thinking, relativism, the tyranny of relativism. So this gives these young people a platform to try to tear someone like Jordan Peterson down. And if you can make Jordan Peterson look stupid, then you win. That's the mentality of modern debate. And we're going to get into crazy modern debate. But in this case, this is a young man who is using a very old argument that even the original philosophers used to argue. If God is all-knowing, all-loving, and all-powerful, why do bad things happen to good people? This is called the problem of evil. And if God is the creator of all things and in a way the master of our destiny, then do we have free will? And the answer can technically be yes and no. Dr. Peterson failed to kind of acknowledge that. He got to the point when he said to this young man, you know, this idea of a causal God fails for you, but doesn't fail for other people. And here's why. The problem of good and evil, the problem of freedom. These are all, again, ancient philosophical discussions that this young man wants to say in the past 50 years they've been great thinkers who can debunk God because of this problem of freedom and a providing Father, God, who is in charge of all things and says that you have freedom, but you're really not, because all you are a slave to this God. And therefore, God doesn't allow you to have free thinking or free will. The problem with this, and to be honest with you, I get a little tired of it because as a public person myself, I'm constantly having discussions with young people particularly who have been absolutely brainwashed to thinking syllogistic arguments are true, even if they don't have to be true. But their thinking, which is limited due to their limited experiences, does not allow them to experience humility. And that's the key to this particular argument. Humility. This all-powerful, all-knowing, all-loving God who created all things and is the prime mover, the one who puts in motion everything, is also humble. And therefore, in God's humility, gives to us free will, knowing that we can hurt him and we can turn away from God and we don't do his will. And so this man's argument, again, at least he sounded a little bit more respectful, although there was an air of impetuosity. And basically, again, these are all these gotcha moments. It can be very frustrating for me to see this stuff because, this is not helping anybody. Anyway, let's keep going with this debate.
Atheists reject God, but they don't understand what they're rejecting. You accept conscience as a guide, and conscience is one of the defining characteristics of God in the Old Testament.
I think you're being intellectually disingenuous.
In what way?
Because, again,
I asked you if you believe that conscience guided you.
You just asked me a question and then you stopped me from answering it.
If you're like in like Nazi Germany, and it is the case that there's like Jewish people in your attic and you're trying to protect them,
example.
Would you lie to like the Nazis?
I would have done everything I bloody well could, so I wouldn't be in that situation.
Would you
to
lie?
begin with. It's a hypothetical, and it's
You
not
can't answer
answerable.
hypotheticals?
No, I can't answer a hypothetical like
What?
that because
Did
it's
you eat
fun.
today? Did you
Don't
eat today?
play games.
I'm not playing a game. I'm just
Yes,
asking if
you
you
are.
ate it.
I just told you
Hypothetical?
I would do everything that I could to make sure that I'm never in that situation.
There could be a Jewish friend that you have, and you want to protect them.
I think you should
have
just
them in
give
your
up on
attic.
that line of questioning.
But like, okay, again, you're not answering this hypothetical because you know it shows that you clearly would lie to save
I'm
someone's life.
answering it in
Obviously,
a
that's
manner
not what
you
truth
don't
is.
find acceptable.
So Parker is a young, liberal, democratic talking point operative, and he likes to troll conservative people, especially Charlie Kirk. And Charlie Kirk will have one of his big events where like thousands of people are kind of gathered to hear him answer questions from detractors or from the audience, and most of them are detractors, although the majority of the people there are his supporters. So this guy Parker will show up and say, debate me, you should debate me because I'm smarter than you. And so basically this young man is the definition and the epitome of a troll, but an ineffective one, because he's just basically trying to insert himself into somebody else's spotlight. And he comes up with what I would call an incredibly weak argument, which is not necessarily hypothetical, but it's just kind of moot. It doesn't matter. This has nothing to do with proving the existence of God. It's just basically trying to chip away at the protections of someone who believes. Because the argument is, if you lie, you're going to go to hell. That's ultimately the essence of this argument. But again, that doesn't take into account free will, and free will needs to take into account humility. But also, it has to take into account God is an all-knowing God. God knows what is in our heart. Even if we commit a sin on the outside, perhaps the effects are not going to be as terrible because of what God sees on the inside. So this is the kind of nonsense that I'm seeing with platforms like Jubilee. And Charlie Kirk, I think, went to England. Perhaps it was Cambridge, I believe, and he was debating some people there, and that turned into a dumpster fire too. And why is this a problem? Well, because debate is now a lost art. And I'm going to prove it to you with the way culture approaches discussion, debate, disagreement, discourse, dialogue. All of these are part of a necessary form of communication to try to win people over. But this, what I'm going to show you now, it's not me making fun of anyone, but it's something that you need to see, because this is the kind of craziness that people think is the meaning of debate. Check this out.
But I'm going to ask you first. We'll start with you, Amina. What was the topic, first of all?
The topic was restricting presidential war powers authority.
They say the always already queer. That's exactly the point. It means that the impact is not, that is an impact turn to the that it is a case turn to the affirmative, because we are saying that queer bodies are not able to survive. That it necessarily means that the body of not able to survive.
We got the topic in about July, and we started doing our research then.
Sees these pains and suffering that he can only envision himself, that he does not see another that he can feel sympathy for or embrace, but rather that other obliterated.
We've been supplementing our research throughout the season.
Was there anything that threw you off during the competition? You know, something that someone else said, another team, that made you go,
"Ain't it crazy that 2 days ago I almost went to jail and I'm here right now?"
Yeah, well, the argument that we hit in the final round was a pretty difficult argument.
Some say the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. I say the darker the flesh and the deeper the roots. I give a holler for my sisters on welfare. It's Tupac cares and don't nobody else cares.
We've been debating against this argument all year.
And I know they like to beat you down a lot. When you come around the block, brothers clown a lot. But please don't cry, dry your eyes. 2014 SEDA national champions on a 7-4 decision is the negative from
So I just wanted to show you what modern debate in an upper level university platform looks like. I honestly have no idea what I just watched. I honestly have no idea. But when they were being interviewed on the news, and then they kept kind of going back to the actual debate, I thought that it was a joke. This has to be fake. But then you see at the end, they were announced the winners for this debate. So that was the actual national champion debaters for university. I've never heard anything like this in my life. I mean, never in my life. When I was in high school, I actually did speech and debate, and I was actually a coach for, when I was in college, I coached for a Catholic high school's forensic league. And I helped to coach speech and debate. And I'll tell you that I started off in debate, but I didn't necessarily like the format because, and I was also young. So I kind of shifted gears and I did more oratory. So I did original oratory, I did prose, I did declamation, I did drama, but I also did some debate. And the kind of debate that we did was called Lincoln Douglas strategic debating. And in this, you have a topic, you state the affirmative, someone states the negative, and then you kind of go back on their points and kind of prove your points. And then the opposing team can go through that as well. And then you have like a few minutes to do some closing arguments, and you have a panel of judges. There's generally 3 in the room listening to you debate this topic, and you have to research everything. So you see a lot of Lincoln Douglas debaters or extemporaneous speakers. They'll come in with basic like file cabinets worth of information. And oftentimes in the Lincoln Douglas debate, there is like maybe 2 or 3 topics, and you have to just keep using those topics throughout the season. So in any given season, you might be arguing the same thing. And perhaps your affirmative is a lot stronger than your negative. But a good debater, this is the key, A good debater knows both sides of the argument. Why am I saying this? Because what I just saw here and what we have seen with Jordan Peterson is that we're having debaters who actually don't know both sides of the argument. They only know their position. They presume a lot about the other. So I think in order for us to have a healthy conversation about this, well, here's my commentary, because you are going to be challenged and you are going to be brought in front of a judge and you are going to be brought out into the streets and you're going to be asked questions about your faith and you might have to debate somebody. So what do we do about that? Here's my commentary. First and foremost, I want to just at least give kudos to anyone who's willing to have a conversation, especially difficult conversations. Jordan Peterson is a fantastic teacher. He is certainly philosophical and very organic and organized in his thoughts. And he's great when he's interviewed, even by people who are hostile to him. But I don't think he's a great debater. I really don't. Because I don't think that it is his personality to withstand so many opposing people, especially those who aren't really logical thinkers. They're defensive. They're almost taking it all personally. And you can almost hear the more they can attack you personally and get a couple of woos and jeers and applause from the crowd. I'm sorry, that doesn't mean that you win a debate. Because what we're seeing, again, is a lot of syllogism. And I've used this word before, and it can actually be a positive thing or it can actually be a negative thing. So here's the definition of a syllogism. It's an instance of a form of reasoning, so it's a type of reasoning, in which the conclusion drawn, whether valid or invalid, from two given or presumed suppositions or premises, each of them share a term with a conclusion, and therefore, and shares a common and middle term not present at the conclusion. So let me give you an example. All dogs are animals. That is true. That's a premise. And here's another one. All animals have 4 legs, but that's not necessarily true. But here's what happens. Therefore, all dogs have 4 legs. So while the first part is true and the last part is true, the middle isn't true, because many animals might only have 1 leg or 2 legs or multiple legs. Who knows? But that middle argumentation, that middle premise wasn't true, but the first part and the second part were true. And so a syllogism almost makes you accept the whole thing as true, even though you can't. And so this is where a lot of people fall, because it's all of the gotcha moments. But I think the thing that challenges me most about watching stuff like this, Charlie Kirk's debate in Cambridge, and also just seeing people argue on the streets, is that they're no longer logical. It's all emotional. So whenever you watch this, I was on the Dr. Phil show. And I was on the Dr. Phil show because I was defending the Catholic Church's teachings and practice of the seal of confession. And I was pitted against 4 people who basically want me to tell everybody what is in your confession. And so it was not a debate structure, but what I noticed in all of that, it was that there was a constant appeal to an emotion. These are all fallacious thinking. And you can actually learn these, because I actually do a little recap on it in something that is offered to people on Patreon. It's called Catholics in Formation. And I have a whole bunch of different presenters giving talks. And one of them is I give it, and it's on fallacies, logical fallacies. We don't understand them enough anymore, and we're constantly falling to it. And what I'm finding is syllogistic argumentation, appeal to emotion, and appeal to popular sentiment. This does not mean that you are correct. Just because you can tell a lie eloquently and with an accent and perhaps with speed and with conviction doesn't make you right. It just makes you a liar who sounds good. And this is what we're seeing oftentimes, is that if someone can make you look stupid, then you must be wrong. But that doesn't mean you're wrong. They're wrong, but they just made you look stupid. That's that appeal to emotion and playing to the crowd, and also the fallacies of just syllogistic argumentation. So this is the problem. So what do you do about it? Here's my thoughts. Number one, don't listen to these kind of things. They're not going to help you. It's just going to make you mad. Trust me. I know. I watched them. I was getting mad because I'm thinking, I wish I was there. But at the same time, I'm glad I'm not, because I think I do a much better job of being able to communicate this way, or one-on-one, where we can actually have a good, authentic relationship and a conversation and not deal with all of the noise. The second thing is, check your emotions. Just the more emotional we get, the weaker our argument is. You might be more believable because you cried, but that doesn't make you right. This is what we're seeing, especially in the news, in light of these mass deportations. There's a lot of emotions that are unchecked. And so the media is trying to force everyone to feel a certain way to make an administration look stupid and evil, because they're deporting people who have either broken laws or came to this country illegally, not legally. And by the way, just so that you know, every country does this. Every country will deport you if you outstay your visa or enter into their country illegally. Every country does it. Why are people getting so emotional that Americans are doing it? I'll tell you why. Because we have become accustomed to not following the law. We got used to not following the law. So as soon as someone splashes the law back on us, it shocks us into a system. That's the lack of critical thinking. And so in these cases, I just simply ask you to maybe have conversations one-on-one, try to remove the emotions, and don't handle too many topics at one time. In fact, just stick with one and investigate the heaven into it. That's what needs to be done. And especially when it comes to matters of faith. Don't debate faith anymore, because it could literally get you killed or canceled, which might actually be worse. Instead, just live your faith well and let your actions speak for itself. I certainly hope that this helps you, especially unpack this, because there's been so much stuff about the whole Jordan Peterson losing to a bunch of atheists. Really quite frustrating. He did not. He certainly didn't win it either. But to say that the other group did would be faulty thinking. That's what this is all about. Getting you to learn ways to approach your faith and the things of this world in a much more orthodox, pastorally appropriate, and theologically correct way. Thank you for watching. I hope that this helps. Please leave your comments, subscribe, share. All of that engagement helps us overcome the algorithms. And also, please consider supporting us on patreon.com/thefatherleo show. There you can get access to all of the Catholics information, presenters and presentations. And I think you're going to enjoy it. And it'll just be our way of saying thank you for supporting us so that we can continue to dish out faith, culture, and commentary. God bless you, and stay hungry for God.